What? Yes, it's very short. I hope y'all don't mind. Well, I feel like I've been a little long-winded lately. I sent them to my mom and like, wow, 53 minutes. I better settle down. Yeah. So, yeah, well, this one won't be 53 minutes. I can pretty much promise you. But I am going to put in my 2 cents worth this morning. I was, y'all know how I like phrases, and I like looking at where phrases come from. And I was thinking the other day about the widow with her 2 little mites, and that got me thinking about my 2 cents. And y'all have heard the expression, where someone says, I'm going to give my 2 cents worth. And it's used in many different ways, but it's a way of, well, I put the way Wikipedia explained it here. It says, my 2 cents says the user of the phrase hopes to lessen the impact of a possibly contentious statement, showing politeness and humility. So, well, if you want my 2 cents worth, I think such and such, So it's a way of tempering what you're about to say when you give your opinion about something. It's a nice way of giving your opinion where you try not to hurt anybody's feelings, but you want to get your point across, so you give them your 2 cents worth. And it's also sometimes used with irony when expressing a strongly felt opinion. Well, want my 2 cents? I think this. Where you're going to get that point across. And you started off by saying, this is my 2 cents worth. Or you might have heard someone say, well, I asked them a penny for their thoughts, and they gave me their 2 cents worth. In other words, I got more than what I bargained for. And we've all been there. But this morning I want to talk about my 2 cents. And it's not really in terms of money, even though when we look at where this phrase originated in the Bible, it does deal with money, but I want to talk more about it as far as what I give. What I give, that's my 2 cents. And a lot of times we might think, well, my 2 cents isn't worth much. But it's really worth a lot, more than even what you think it is. So I want to talk about our 2 cents today and what we're able to give. And I wanted to start in Luke chapter 21, the obvious place to start, the story of the widow that gave her 2 mites. It's recorded in Luke chapter 21, starting at verse 1. It says, and he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in thither 2 mites. And he said, of a truth I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast in more than they all. For all these have of their abundance cast into the offerings of God, but she of her penury hath cast in all the living that she had. So in other words, she might have only given 2 little bitty coins that weren't worth much. I think in today's money they'd be worth about 17 cents is all. So she just gave a little bit, but it was everything that she had. So in comparison to what those rich people were giving out of their abundance, they weren't even sacrificing to give the riches that they gave. But in God's eyes, that all that she gave was worth so much more than what the ones who gave out of their abundance did. And I got to thinking, let's not even think about this in terms of money. But when I give, Sister Green, when I give of my time or of my witness, it may seem like such a little amount, but if it's out of my sacrifice, that means so much to God. And it's worth so much more than if I just gave out of what I had left over. After I've done all I've went, and I've got this left over, so I'm going to give it. It's just, I can fit this in. Yeah, I've got a few minutes free. I'll just throw this in. But when I make a sacrifice, and it's a sacrifice to come and make peanut brittle, or it's a sacrifice to give of your time, to even come to a Bible study like this, it's a sacrifice. When we sacrifice, or when I get out of my comfort zone, and this is a hard one for me, when I get out of my comfort zone, and I go and I greet somebody I've never talked to before, that's way out of my comfort zone. And it seems like it's just, why don't I just let my sister handle that one? She's such a social butterfly. I could just let her handle it because she has that in abundance. But I think in God's eyes, when we make those personal sacrifices to Him, it means so much more. And you might think that the little things you do don't amount to much. I mean, when she put that 17 cents in the offering plate, she probably was embarrassed to even give that. But it doesn't matter how much you have, as long as you give your all, as long as you give your best. So I don't know why I feel so strongly about this today, but don't think that you are insignificant in the kingdom of God, because every time you tell somebody about the goodness of God, or every time you give out of your penury, in other words, it's a sacrifice for you, it means so much in the kingdom. So, what you're doing means so much more than what it looks like on the surface. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make here. Now, Mark described this scene a little bit different than Luke. So let's take a look at Mark's account. It's in chapter 12. So Mark chapter 12, starting at verse 41. This is the same account. But remember, one of the things I love most about the Gospels is we get to see the different disciples' perspective. And looking at how one person views how something happened compared to how another, it paints a bigger, fuller picture of what actually happened. When you get many perspectives, it paints a bigger picture of the truth. And that's the way the Bible works. When you look at line upon line and precept upon precept, it all pieces together so beautifully. And one scripture might say something, and you can take that one scripture and pull it out of context and base your doctrine on it. But if you would just dig a little deeper, you'd see that, hey, that's mentioned over here also. And this puts a little more meaning to what the word meant to tell me. And it doesn't matter how many times you've read the Bible through. And it doesn't matter how many times you've even read a certain verse. Reading the verse again might trigger, I just read that over here in James and it said it a different way, but wow, God is just reinforcing His Word to me this morning. So in your study, these different perspectives and viewing the Word from different angles, it amazes me how well put together the Word is. And in Matthew chapter 12, when we look at starting at verse 41, this is how Mark recalled this day in the temple. And it says, "And Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury." So Mark here is saying that Jesus is standing over against the treasury and he's just beholding. So Mark picks up that Jesus is watching as people put it in. So it lets us know that, hey, Jesus he wasn't just casually glancing, but he was beholding how they put their money in. And so it gives us a little more insight into what actually happened that day. And Jesus also noticed that many that were rich cast in much. So those rich people, they were given large offerings. "And there came a certain poor widow." He described it exactly like Luke did. It was just a certain poor widow. We don't even have her name. It was just a certain poor widow. "And she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples, and saith unto them." So he wanted them to get this. So he called them together. And he says, "Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast more in than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in of their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living." So what was he trying to get his disciples to see that day? He's trying to get them to realize, boys, you need to give your all. You need to give not just out of what's left over, but you need to give everything that's in you. You need to give it all to the work of the kingdom. And boy, we fall so short. I fall so short when I look at it in light of, I'm going to have to stand in judgment next to her, Sister Green, and I can do more. I can give more. You know, when you look at it in that respect, it's like, God, I need to do more. I need to give more. I don't want to just give out of my abundance, but I want my life. It's like Romans chapter 12 verse 1 tells us. I can reference it now because I've been quoting Zach. It says, let's see. "I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercy of the God, that ye present your body a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is just your reasonable service." I mean, the word, it builds upon itself. Jesus here, he's trying to lay that foundation. Look, guys, you need to give your all. And then Paul reiterates it over in Romans. Look, make your life a living sacrifice to God. Don't just give out of your abundance. Don't just make it part of your daily routine where it's just a part of your schedule, but you make your life a living sacrifice. We all know the story of the talents, but I wanted to revisit it this morning. It's in Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25, starting at verse 14. Jesus is, he taught a lot in parables. And in this particular parable, starting at verse 14 of Matthew 25, it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey." God doesn't make us all out of the same mold. We're not all cookie cutter Christians. He gives us all different talents that are unique to us. I've already mentioned my sister. My sister, she is very creative, and she can decorate. She's like Amanda. She's like Amanda and Sister Rita. She is so talented. Now, I can look at something and say, oh, that looks great, but I couldn't have put it together that way. And my sister is an excellent Bible quiz coach. She doesn't mind sitting behind those quizzers and coaching in the heat of the battle. Sister Green, I could barely sit on the pew. There's no way I could sit behind the quizzers and coach them. But there are things that I can do that my sister can't do. I mean, I can teach a Bible study. She can too, though. She's taught Sunday school too. But she can't do math. My mom had to pay for a tutor for her in geometry because she wouldn't listen to me. And but she struggles with math. But so I have my own talents and she has hers. But the neat thing about the church is God gave this church a Sister Rita and a Sister Amanda for the decorating. And God gave this church a Sister Alice for making sure all this behind-the-scenes stuff gets done. And Sister Lenora for running the front office. And, God has given us different talents, put us all together, and we all make up one body. And if our big toe is cut off, we have trouble keeping our balance. And there's a Bible study I heard a sermon about that. You know, that king that had his big toe cut off and he had trouble walking from then on because he couldn't keep his balance. The big toe's important. And even if that's all you are, the church can't maintain its balance without you. So we all have the talents that God gave us. And my 2 talents, it's not the same as somebody else's 5 talents, but God gave me what He gave me. And He expects me to use those 2 talents He gave me. And if He only gave you 1 talent, He expects you to use that 1 talent. So in this parable, He's trying to get this point across to His disciples. Whatever talent you're given, don't go hide that talent and just keep it safe for you only. But you need to use that talent. So this man gave his servants their talents and he took his journey. And in verse 16 it says, then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same and made them other 5 talents. So he took his talents and he put them to work. And he doubled them. And likewise, he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. So he doubled his talents also. But he that had received 1, and I find it ironic that the one that, he had the least he had to work with. So he could have easily done something with just 1. He didn't have to do as much as the others. All he had was 1 to work with. But he just went and the Bible says that he went and digged a hole in the ground. He digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. And after a long time, so that Lord gave them plenty of time to make use of their talent. So after a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. And his Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And it is not an accident. If you're a Bible reader, you've noticed, hey, I've heard that phrase before. Good and faithful servant. Where have we heard that before? Where have we heard thou good and faithful servant before? Anybody?
Revelation.
Well, yes, it's at the judgment day. That's the exact wording that the Lord is going to use to those who get to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And so in this parable, when He's teaching His disciples, He uses those same words in this parable. You know why? He wants it to trigger in our mind. Hey, this is very important because these are the words I want to hear. These are the exact words that I want to hear on that day. So he says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. Notice how boldly those 2 servants came to their Lord. They're like, Lord, behold, you gave me 2 and I've doubled them. They weren't timid in their accomplishments. They went before their Lord with confidence, knowing that they had taken what they had been given and had doubled it. So they knew they'd done a good job. They knew before they even went that they'd done a good job. And so they're like, Lord, you gave me this, and behold, look at it, I gained this. So they were very happy, and they knew they'd done good. And in verse 23 it says, Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, now I want y'all to notice how he approached the Lord. The other 2 came and said, Lord, you gave me this, and behold. But look at how this servant approaches his Lord. He said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth, and lo, there thou hast, that is thine. So he comes in. First thing that comes out of his mouth is an excuse. I knew that you were this. And so the first thing was an excuse. And you know, I have learned when my kids approach me and the first thing out of their mouth is an excuse, I know what's coming next. I know exactly what's coming next. Because the job that I've given them is not done. So, and that's exactly what this servant did. And his Lord answered, this is verse 26, his Lord answered and said unto him, thou wicked and slothful servant. And then he turns his excuse back around. He's like, man, you knew. Thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with a little interest. You know, so he tells him, look at your excuse, fella. You knew that I reap where I don't sow, so the least you should have done is the minimum, at least gotten a little bit of interest off my money. Verse 29, for unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And you know, when Jesus gave this parable, look at how he started it. Look back at verse 14. He started it saying, for the kingdom of heaven is as. For the kingdom of heaven is as. And then he ended the parable by saying, for unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. In other words, the way the kingdom of God works, and this is even the way God's church works, and this is so true. Those that are constantly giving of themselves, and I'm not talking money, I'm talking those that are giving, that are working for the Lord, those that are putting forth an effort to do their very best in church and in living for God, and in every time the church needs something, they're the ones. I want to be the one that does that. They're using their talents. But those that use their talents for the church, have you ever noticed that those are the ones that are shouting at the front? Those are the ones that have the most joy in their lives. Those are the ones that have abundance, I'm not talking abundance in wealth, although that happens, but those are the ones that have that abundance of joy. Those are the ones that the more they give, the more it seems like the more they're blessed. Well, Jesus laid that foundation from the very beginning, from the foundation of the church. This is the way it's going to be, guys. I'm not keeping a secret from you. If you want more of the goodness of God, why don't you try giving more? Because something my mama taught me from a very young age, you can't outgive God. You can try, but it's impossible to outgive the Lord. The more you give of your time, the more you give of your talents, the more you are given. It's a law. It's like the law of the planter. He's going to sow. If you plant, you're going to sow. I'm about to get tomatoes coming out of my ears because I planted more potato plants this year than ever. And they are loaded. They are loaded with not just nice green tomatoes, which are about to turn red, but they have little yellow blooms. I walked out and I'm like, what has happened? I thought that the leaves had turned yellow, but the closer I got to my garden, I saw all those yellow blooms. And I was thinking, I'm about to reap what I sowed. But it's a law. When you plant it, it's going to grow and you're going to reap. Well, when you give to the kingdom of God, that's what this parable is teaching us. God has given each of us talents. And if we give, the more we give, the more we get. It's a law, and God never breaks a promise in this book. So you can try. I challenge you. Try to outgive God. Try to outgive. And I know what's going to happen. And you know what's going to happen too, because if you've ever given and given and given, trust me when I can speak from experience, you're going to get and get and get. Because it's impossible to outgive the Lord. Our God, that's just the way He set it up. And I am so thankful that He set it up that way, because the more I do, the more God blesses my life. I wanted to end in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Ecclesiastes chapter 9. And the little note at the top on my thing here, it says, everyone will die. And then after verse 3 it says, I don't know if yours has these notes, but this is, it amuses me. It says, better to be poor but alive than rich but dead. But the third comment for this chapter, life is brief. Life is brief, so cherish its joys. And then, wisdom cannot protect against seemingly chance events. And then, most people are not receptive to wise counsel. How true is that? And then it ends with wisdom versus fools sin and folly. So that's a little preview of what we're about to read. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, believe it or not, this is one of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible. I love this chapter. Although there are some verses in here that I wish God would have left out. We'll get to them. Anyway, it says, "For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God." The righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. You know, there are times that we just have to trust God. We just have to remember, hey, my life is in God's hand. Come what may, my life is in God's hands. "No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, to him that sacrifices and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner." Have you ever looked around and seen the injustice of things in life? I mean, there are some people that have a lot of money, and I look at what they have and I think they are doing so much evil with their money. And if I just had that, I could do so much good. And it's just not right. You would think that the righteous would be the... No, but seriously, there are some wicked people in this world that have a lot of this world's good. And there are a lot of good people, good, godly people that are struggling just to make ends meet. But you know, that's just life. That's just life. And that's what these verses here are telling us. It's just life. All things come alike to all. It's just life. "And he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all." So what is Solomon saying here? He's saying, look, it's just an evil. It's just an injustice that all things come to all. You know, it would be nice if the nice always got the best. And if good always won over evil. And if the best always got first place. And, you know, these are just... It would be nice, but this is just an evil that life is life, and that time and chance happen to everybody, and that it's not always the best who win, and it's not always the good who get favor, and it's just life. Life is not fair. And Solomon's saying that this is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. It's like my pa-in-law always says, every day above the ground is a good day.
I've heard that before.
Every day above the ground is a good day. Of course, this is the same man who wants us to stick a little box that says, "Let me out of here, let me out of here," in his casket, because he just has that kind of sense of humor. But anyway, verse 5 says, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun all the days of thy vanity. For that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun." And then verse 10. Probably, if I had to pick one verse that I like above all others, as far as it's just good teaching, it's just wise, and if I can just make this my motto, Verse 10 is it. Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, "Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest." In other words, you've got one shot at this thing called life. That's it. We have one shot at this. One chance. And if my kids don't remember anything else I teach them, I want them to remember that their mama taught them to give their best at everything they do. Whatever you find to do in this life, you give it your best. Give your all. Just like that widow woman did with her 2 little mites. Whatever you find to do it right. Don't do things half-hearted. Live life to the fullest. That's what Solomon is saying here. Whatever you do, give your best at it, because you can't take it with you. You can't. This is your only chance at this. So live it to the fullest. Love more, live more, laugh more. That's what Solomon's saying here. Whatever you do, give it your all. Remember that every breath you take is one less breath you have in this life. So look at life that way, is what he's saying. Just give your all, give your best. Because time for you is limited. At least here on earth it is. So live life to the fullest. Hug your kids more. Love your family more. Do more for God. Do more for the church. Give more. Try harder. But whatever you do it with your might. Verse 11 says, "I returned and saw under the sun." Oh yeah, this is that verse I wish he would have left out. This is the one. He says, "I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all." Now I just told you that the verse I liked the most was verse 10. Well, the verse I like the least is verse 11. But if I think about it, there's no accident that those are back to back. Because in one sentence, he tells us, live life to the fullest. In everything you do, give it your best. And in the next verse, he's telling us, just because you do your best doesn't mean you're going to win. Just because you're wise doesn't mean you're going to be rich. So right after he tells us, give your all, he says, even if you do, it doesn't guarantee you anything in this life. So it's like, okay, he just pumped you up to give everything. And then he says, but the race is not to the swift, or riches to the wise. But time and chance happeneth to them all. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare. So are the sons of men snared in an evil time, when it falleth suddenly upon them. What's he saying? There's no guarantees in this life. But right before he tells you that there's no guarantees in this life, he tells you, look, you give your all. You give your best. In everything you do, you put your whole heart into it. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. There was a little city, and few men within it, and there came a great king against it, and besieged it, and built great bulwarks against it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no man remembered that same poor man. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. What's he saying here? When you give your all, and you put your talents to use, it may not be seen by others. It may not be recognized by others, but it accomplishes great things. It accomplishes great things. What's he saying? He's saying it doesn't matter if you don't get that recognition or if it seems so insignificant. If you're just that little poor man who used his wisdom and saved a city but nobody noticed. But what matters is that you gave your all, that you put your talents to use. The words of wise men are heard in quiet, more than the cry of him that ruleth among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. So I guess in summary, we need to come to the same conclusion that Solomon came to. And that is, even though it may seem futile, even though time and chance are going to happen, even though the talents that you feel you have don't seem like much, even though all you have are 2 mites, go ahead and give it your all. Go ahead and give your 2 cents worth. Go ahead and put what you have in. In other words, whatever you find to do, give everything. Give it your all. Put in your 2 cents worth. Give your my 2 cents. So, there you go.